episode begins. Yeah, this is on it. Like, it already started. Maybe. Welcome to another episode of Searching for McGuffin with your host George,
Gabe,
and Link.
No. I mean, that's not who you are. Okay.
I'm Gisella.
Yeah, Gisella's back on the show. Woo! My beautiful wife, which I mention constantly.
Wait, where am I looking?
You're looking over there. Yeah. There you go. Okay. So we brought a very special guest for a very special topic. Yes.
Yeah, since Link's not here, what happened to him?
He's dead.
He was drafted.
But how did he?
No,
He was drafted.
He was drafted to the NFL to what?
NBA?
To a foreign conflict that will not be named.
A foreign conflict.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Well, thoughts and prayers with everybody that's going against him, because you're gonna need it.
I'm sure he's safe.
Why did he get drafted?
He got drafted because he signed up to the wrong draft. He thought that he was going to be drafted, to play for a professional sports team. But it turns out he really just registered to serve.
Oh, wow.
Well, we thank you for your service, Link.
Yeah.
Hopefully he goes AWOL and then negotiates down to a dishonorable discharge.
Lots of military references.
Yeah. I wonder why that is. Oh no, I thought I volleyed that for you, but
I threw it right back at you.
Okay, thank you. So this week, our episode is called, and I'm going to say the title so that Dan stops changing them when he publishes the episode, because when we plan this and we title the episode, he doesn't look at the planning sheet. He just edits the episode. And he's like, I wonder what I want to call this episode. So shout out to Dan, wherever you are.
Maybe he doesn't like what you
I think
guys
you need to
call
talk
it.
directly.
Oh,
but,
maybe he doesn't like what you guys called the name of the title.
No, I don't think he even looks at the planning sheet anymore. Since
he's just like, man, these lazy scrubs didn't give me anything to go off of, so I guess it's up to me.
Yeah, but he internalizes it and everything. Yeah. So this week's episode is, and I think this is the episode before when we come back from episode 100, right?
Yeah, we went on a bender on that one.
Yeah, congratulations to us. I know we've been gone for a little bit. Yeah, episode 100. Usually we would celebrate on an episode like that, but we just gave you a clip show, like a 90s sitcom. So
that was a lot of fun going back and looking at that, though.
Yeah. We're like, episode 100. Like, what have we even accomplished? And then going back and listening to like 100+ minutes of the show was like. Except
I will say half the clips that I chose didn't get picked.
What?
And just did his own thing.
Oh, he just ignored the clips.
I was watching. I was like, oh, these are my clips that are coming up, and then I'm listening.
Which one is your guys' favorite episode? Which one's your favorite episode?
My favorite episode is episode 100. Listen to episode 100, available now.
Okay, you didn't answer.
So start on Spotify, and then once you get to video, it was episode 51 or something?
Yeah.
Then start watching it on YouTube.
Yeah. Okay, Gabe, if you can answer that question real quick before we go to
favorite episode?
Favorite episode.
Honestly, actually, I really like the travel episode that we did together.
Oh, yeah.
That was fun.
I'm going to say I liked the Oscar episode that we did together.
Oh, is it because I'm here, you guys?
No, it's just a pure coincidence. No.
What else?
Your episodes get the highest rating in the female demographic, so.
Oh.
Yeah, our listens, they double, so.
Oh,
Maybe.
The Batman episode too. That one was really good.
Yeah, that one's good. You weren't on that one, but that one was excellent. Yeah. But anyways.
Wait. What's your favorite episode of ours since you listen?
Oh, yeah.
All of them.
I like all of them.
No.
I like all of the episodes.
I'm going to guess that your favorite episode has to be between 1 and 50, which was the last time you listened to it.
Give me some credits.
Oh, yeah.
Probably the one that she thought we were drunk.
I'm going to be honest. I just don't remember the names of the episodes. And they're all meshed together now.
I mean, we don't remember the names either, so we just gave you the topic.
But there is a few that I like that I was literally peeing in my pants.
We cause urination? I don't understand that. What does that mean?
Because they were really funny.
Oh, okay. So you pee when you laugh?
It's a matter of speaking.
Oh, so you don't pee when you laugh?
No. But
not literally. Okay.
Yeah.
Also, one of the other things that I noticed during the clips was when we talked about rubbing dirt in the wound or whatever, put some dirt in it.
Mm-hmm. Is that a war reference?
No, it's a sports reference.
Oh. And that's probably why I don't know it. because I don't really watch sports. Although I don't think they say it in the games. I'm pretty sure it's like in practice and stuff.
No, yeah, I think it's just like something you say as you're growing up.
Like, do your coaches tell you to do it?
I was being yelled at in Spanish by my coaches, so no.
Okay, so then go.
I think maybe more if you go more up north.
Por un poquito tierra en esa, I don't know, what is it, wound? What is it?
En la herida?
Come tierra.
No, it's probably just a bunch of curse words.
Oh, okay, yeah. I think I did substitute a curse word for it.
Yeah.
Eres tremendo come tierra.
Come tierra.
So, this week's episode is titled, unless Dan changes it, War. What is it good for? And our focus is going to be on war films, their history, and their impact today. So what better guest to have with us than a historian herself, Gisella.
Thank you.
Oh, no problem.
I don't know if I consider myself a historian.
His or her historian. Their historian.
Their historian.
So, what is it about war films that compels us? Like, why are we drawn to these films?
I think off the bat, it's a spectacle. You know, it's I think a lot of the popular war movies are just like ginormous set pieces. You know, and both like fiction and nonfiction. I think, you know, from Lord of the Rings to Star Wars to Saving Private Ryan. I think a lot of those films have that spectacle, and I think, like, I don't know, the way that I grew up around watching these films.
Yeah.
And my dad is a huge war history buff in those regards, and always talking about these things that happen, and like we'll watch the movies and then he'll like add in the stuff that like this didn't actually happen, or like that actually happened, and stuff like that. So for me at least, that was one of the ways I think with a lot of these things that we talk about in this show was a way, I guess, for me to connect with my dad, because those movies we watched a lot. But the thing that I can remember as a kid got me into that was these things are massive conflicts. There's a bunch of stuff going on. I think ultimately it's the there's heroic aspects, I think, in a lot of these films, especially like back then. I think more recently we have more nuance, and there's different stories that are being told.
Yeah.
Which I think are great. What about you?
I mean, I find it interesting that you drew immediately like Lord of the Rings and Star Wars. I wasn't even thinking that, when we were discussing this topic, because even in our fantasy and in our fiction, we can't help but trickle in the impact that real life conflicts, international incidents, military action, our fiction parallels those real world events, right? And kind of serve as a metaphor. But focusing in on specifically directly the war genre, nonfiction, I think it's that. I think people like to learn, people like to be entertained, and I feel that it's easy to feel that you're getting something out of your experience when you see a real life story, or a story that's set in a real time period in the midst of a real conflict. And I also think that you connect to it more, because as much as we've spent 100 episodes, right, talking about mostly a bunch of made up story, and we talk about superheroes and space lasers, I think when you connect with a story that you feel not only could really happen, but in many ways did really happen, it's that much more real, because the suspension of disbelief is so small, especially if the film has a reputation or context going into it that it's accurately depicting. Mm-hmm. At least for me, that's a big hallmark of a great film. It doesn't mean that every great war film or historical film does toe the line of representing everything exactly as it occurred. But I think if you can get very close to learning about the real period and the real time and the people that went through it, you come out of it almost gaining knowledge and growing through the experience, rather than, even though it's important and we've talked about it, frivolous entertainment or something that you have to apply to your life, but isn't real on some level.
Yeah.
Mm. Well, at the very least, a good action movie,
Yeah, at the very least, right?
right? But when I think of war films, and especially when they're well done, I mean, and I think the reason why people gravitate towards these films is because it brings the best and the worst out of humanity all at
Mhm.
the same time. And I think there's a curious and even a morbid curiosity,
Yeah.
to see how people deal with this like extreme cases, of violence, of hunger, of conflict.
Yeah.
And I think that I'd we want to see the outcome, right? Like what happened, like what's gonna happen, what did happen
Mm.
to get there, to get to that point where humanity decides to kill each other. What was the reason?
Mm-hmm.
What moved people to do the things that they do. And I think one of the things that I gravitate also toward war film, obviously, there's always a historical aspect, but it's more of like also like how much people are willing to sacrifice or do to be able to survive, right? Like to be able to like overcome those moments.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't even do. So it cannot take us to like another reality that a lot of us hopefully will never have to live through. So I guess we want to see how other people has done it.
Oh yeah. I think speaking to that, when I don't know, like there's just certain acts that I think even just through storytelling, it's like, you have the hero's journey, you have, a character, a main character or whatever it is, performing these great feats or these acts of, either selflessness, courage, acts of heroism.
Mm-hmm.
That is like, because when you throw in the moral, like, I wouldn't say moral dilemma, but you throw in the moral aspect of like, you have the good guys and you have the bad guys.
Yeah.
And when
I mean, I think it is a moral dilemma because even the good guys have to do bad things.
No, exactly. And I think for me, at least, like growing up, it's black and white,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
Yeah.
you have the good guys, you have the bad guys. The good
Mhm.
guys, like they're like, they're not doing well. They're like, they look like they're going to get killed or whatever.
Right.
And then, they make the comeback or something happens, they get saved or something happens where, they make a triumphant comeback and they end up winning. For me, that as a kid, that's what really spoke to me was, I mean, like in Saving Private Ryan, when Tom Hanks he's done, like the tanks are coming and like everyone's getting like fried and he's shooting the gun and he's shooting the pistol, at a tank. Like that's never, and then like the last shot, he ends up like when the tank is about to like blow them all up, like an airplane, like a jet comes and just like blows up the tank.
Oh,
and they
that's
get
what
saved.
happened? I thought Tom Hanks blew up that tank with that pistol.
No, it was no,
That was a jet.
no, it was a jet that dropped the missile and Tom Hanks' bullet like
Oh,
hit it at the same time.
that's if Tom Cruise would have been the star of
Mhm.
Saving Private Ryan. That's how that movie would have ended.
So close. But like to me that was like that's what like I loved watching those movies. I was way too young to be watching those movies.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
was like way too young
Yeah.
because I didn't understand that. Like to me it was like these people are getting murdered, but it also made it like the point where like it was almost fiction in a way to me because that wasn't real. I didn't know what, that kind of like loss of life on that scale was.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That wasn't real to me. I didn't think anything of it. Like, obviously like there's a lot of like gruesome and gory details in the movie with people like, getting disemboweled and all that stuff. As a kid, I'm like, oh, that's just movie stuff,
Mhm.
And it was like, I wasn't differentiating it between like that or like,
Yeah.
When
When you say as a kid, like what age were we talking?
when I saw like those movies like Black Hawk Down, Saving Private Ryan, I'm like, what? 8, 9, 10?
8, 9. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Maybe a little too young. I don't think a little too young to watch the movie if you like contextualize it. But if you're like just on your own trying to figure it out.
I mean,
But
even if you contextualize
no, I was way too
it.
young to be. Because that's the thing. Like, I think about it now. Like, watching those movies, like, as an adult.
Oh, that's true. Because I'm thinking about the 8 and 9 year olds in my life now, and I was like,
Well,
yeah,
it's
I
different
probably
now.
wouldn't show them.
But like,
no. I'm thinking even like, would I
Yeah.
want like my niece, you know, who's like 9? Would I show them them? Well, yeah, no,
yeah, exactly. Like, I'm seeing people's heads get blown off, and like, there's so much emotion and stuff like that. That to me, like, I just saw that as, this isn't a movie. This isn't real.
Right.
And then as I grow up, like, I've seen more films, and I look back at the films I used to watch, and I'm like, no, this was very real. This is a point in time that these people like lived through this.
Right. And especially when you're young, we tend to like oversimplify things, right? Put a very black and white, and conflicts like this, whether it's World War II or the Civil War or whatever war it's being depicted in that film, it's never that black and white. It's never black and white. It's so many complexities, right? When we're talking about human conflict.
Yeah. And human life.
Right. And it's interesting because also we like to, and like, for example, like when we talk about Saving Private Ryan, right? And I love the film because there is that scene where they have the opportunity to save the enemy, right? And they decide that they were gonna keep him alive. And even those moments, you know, when like it comes down to it, they're all humans.
Yeah.
Right. And it's very difficult to make decisions, right? Based on what is the mission.
Yeah.
Right, because your humanity kicks in. Like, this is a person, is a human being in front of us, right? That probably has a family and kids and people that love, or people to love, right? Yeah. And it's not as easy to like say, well, he's the bad guy, he should be dead, right? So, and watching it in an early age, it's hard to like truly understand those complexities.
What do you think the right age for that is?
I don't know.
Because I remember. Okay, go ahead.
I think if you're learning about it in like in school,
right.
I think when you're a bit older.
Well, yeah. Like,
well, what are we, like 12, 13?
I think
you're in middle school.
My middle school thing is fine. Like, for example, like my middle schoolers they're learning about the American Revolution. I mean, of course, according to developmental stages, I'm not gonna be like people did this and people did that, but also I don't want to sugarcoat that. The horrors of war.
Yeah, especially
even if you're fighting for liberty and freedom and all the stuff that today our wonderful nation stands for. Yeah. People died.
Yeah.
You know, and people suffered, and it was not romantic. You know, because we love to romanticize this time period there. Right? People suffered, and they suffered oppression, and they suffered they were part of a conflict, you know, that. So as much as I can, I always like to say the truth and be as honest with the material that I'm teaching, especially when it comes to war, because there's nothing romantic about it.
Yeah.
You know, it really isn't.
Although we've gone through generations where I think we have, especially in this country, romanticized it.
Oh, 1000%. Like, I was going to add on, like, growing up, at the same time that I'm watching these movies, I'm playing Call of Duty. I'm playing video games that it's like, the objective is, you know, and I don't know, it's not like, I want to say brainwashing, because it's like, it was my choice to, I mean, maybe my parents should have had a like firmer hand with what I consume, but like, it was my choice to take in these forms of content, but it's like that all played into the fact that like you can respawn. Like my like my internal like what's it called? How I valued life, or how I measured life, like it wasn't
your logic, your rationale.
Yeah, it was irrational, because I thought these weren't real people. Like, it's not real to me. And I think one of the things that I found myself going back to a lot of the times was relating it to that, like, to 9/11, because that to me, like, I was very young. I was younger. I was 5 or 6 when that happened, and that was something that was real. But in my mind, that wasn't related to war at all. Like that wasn't the same thing. This is like a real thing. Those war movies are something else
Right.
because they've happened to people, you know, like people I don't even know years ago that like it's not real to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as I got older, and you know, obviously as conflicts, as the war like against Iraq and Afghanistan came to be later on when I was growing up, that became a real thing to me. And I read more, and I like going back, you know.
You had a reference point.
Yeah,
Right.
in classes, and it's just like I had to kind of overcome, I guess, in a way, the things that I believed before, things that I thought before,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and have my perception change. Because, like you said, like that example that you gave in Saving Private Ryan, where they let that guy live, and then that German soldier ends up, you know, being the one to kill one of the main cast members.
Mhm.
Right.
Like, I was furious
Mm-hmm.
when I saw that. Like, as a kid, I was just like, why would you do that? Like, you let him live, and like now your friends let it. But it's like that is a real thing that happened. That is like those are the things that happen in war. Like, it's extremely messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you are valuing a life. The person is the enemy, but you know that came to bite them back in the end. You know.
Yeah.
And I think that is why I think it's the responsibility of the filmmaker to present this part of history or this the fact or that information as truthful as possible, as honest as possible, right? Because we could make grand films about conflict and war, and especially when it's historical films, right? Like I appreciate those directors that take their time to responsibly depict this time periods as honest as possible, because it's their responsibility to understand that people may never read a book about World War II or the Civil War, and a lot of people are just gonna learn through this specific film
Yeah.
all about that period. And it's important that people understand that war conflicts, you know, they're never pretty.
Yeah.
You know?
The nuance that goes with it.
Right. And they're not that black and white, right? We do like to have like the good guys and the bad guys, and but it is difficult sometimes.
Is there a way to tell that story without the good guys and the bad guys? Or are we kind of slaves to that form of narrative? Do we need to juxtapose those that are in the right versus those that are in the wrong?
I think we do that whether we want to or not. I think that's just, you know, how we are. Someone can look at it objectively as possible. But like I was saying, like a lot of these films that come out nowadays, like that come from the other side, or the side that I thought was the enemy or whatever. And these people, like what's the name of the German one?
All Quiet on the Western Front.
Yeah, like that was a fantastic movie. That was a beautiful movie. And beautiful in the sense of like it's depicting horrific things and terrible, but I think as a film, like it does that well, and it evokes certain emotions and gets you thinking to a point where like I think everything's gonna have its place, but I think opening yourself up to like a variety, not just like certain Hollywood films that are only telling the sides of the Americans.
Yeah.
You know, opening yourself up to being able to watch films where it's like you see it from a German perspective, you see it from a Russian perspective, from the different sides. And I mean, a lot of this is heavily involved with World War II.
Or the Japanese side of World War II.
But like a lot of this is
juxtaposing flags of our fathers with letters from Iwo Jima.
Exactly.
Now, like understanding that there have been times in our history where people stood in the wrong side.
Yeah.
Right? Like we can judge back and say, well, the Nazis were messed up.
Right. Nazis clearly the bad guys, right?
Like we can go back and
sorry
say
for apologists, but the South, the slave South, right?
Like that Confederate States were standing for the wrong thing, right? And those are very clear. However, the people involved in this conflict,
Yeah, how that affects Germany, how it affects the southern states.
Sometimes
regular
they
people
got caught up in this conflict.
Yeah.
They didn't have a say in the war. Like they
Like,
were just
we don't have
drafted,
says, right?
Right. They were just right. So sometimes, and that could affect the way how other people view, right? Whether it's people that lived in the South or people that, are from Germany or whatever other, right? Or even the conflicts between today that has been so controversial, right? Israel and Palestine, right? And we like to like take a side.
We
and
love to
say,
pick sides, yeah.
right? But I think that we also have to understand that there's never winners in war. And I tell that to my students all the time. There's only losers.
Yeah.
Because war in both sides is going to always lead to the loss of human life, and the destruction of towns and cities, like the livelihood of people, and that destruction of so much, so in both sides. But it's very clear, throughout history and even today, right, that we have to understand that people do take stands, and many times throughout history they have taken the wrong stand, right? And that's when we want to be like, oh, these are the good guys and these are the bad guys, and that's very clear, right? But the government that makes those decisions, they're not everyone.
Yeah.
And not everyone got the choice to be part of the war. Some people got caught up on it.
No, yeah.
And that's something that, we have to understand as people. So
People getting, caught up in the middle, and
right.
people that get drafted, people that don't have a choice, people that don't say in the matter, where they're sent. And what do you have to do? Like, you have to survive. You have to fight for your country. And,
You have to fight for your own life, even if you're not a true believer.
Exactly. And I think, like you were saying, like we obviously people are in the wrong. Like there are, at
in
times,
certain conflicts, yeah.
But I think one of those things where, like in Oppenheimer, when his friend Robbie, I forgot his name, but where Oppenheimer's telling him, where he's just like, they're gonna build the bomb, and he's like, I don't know what's gonna happen after we build this. Like, I don't know if we can be trusted with it, but I know for a fact that the Germans can't.
Right.
They can have it.
Because I know for a fact that they will like use that to obliterate anyone. Like with us, I guess like ours are the safer hands or whatever it is.
However you rationalize.
Yeah, like
taking immense.
And I think watching that movie, and like I also think of reading the book as well, added a different level of complexity, I think, to my view on World War II, but also like what came after that, everything that the aftermath of that, at the advent of the atomic bomb, that changed warfare, that changed the world forever, and to say like, oh, these people, like, I don't even know if we can be trusted, but these people definitely won't be, because they're just gonna use it to take over the world.
Yeah. Right.
For their like, because those are the bad guys. What they're doing is bad.
Yeah, that was part of the catalyst for this episode. We had gotten together, our family. My brothers came from all over to celebrate my dad's birthday, and somehow, on this celebration, a birthday dinner, it ended up a geopolitical conversation about the ramifications of World War II and its effect indirectly on, our society today. And I thought, that's crazy that these events, so far removed from where we are now, still shape our perceptions of the world around us. And in many ways, these narratives, how they're viewed through film, they dominate, right? Those ideas.
Is that World War II? It's crazy.
Yeah.
You think about it. I mean, Hitler is like the super villain.
Yeah.
Right? Like, when you think about, man, who is the worst person to be alive? It always goes back to this one person, Hitler.
Well, because like what you said.
And Hitler is a fascinating character in history, right? Like, he is like, the impersonation
real,
of
man.
so much evil. Like how
He's
can
the embodiment of it.
right? It's almost like he's fictional.
Yeah.
Right. Like how can a person like
he's
that
the emperor.
exist?
Yeah.
And like stuff like that.
And not
comes from
only he existed, he rose to power.
Yeah, and you got to think about
Right?
this. So
Like-
Gabriel said something there. He said, first of all, he said about how they couldn't be trusted with the bomb, and it's crazy
Right.
because that was the catalyst of that conversation that we were having. It was
Yeah.
like, can you believe how close we were to world domination? That's the
Right.
thing that was
Right.
actually, a possibility. And second, you're like, he's the emperor. Not that he's as evil as the emperor, but that the emperor is, formed based on
based on
him.
that, yeah.
That's how evil an individual can be.
Right.
These monoliths that we have, they're based on real life people.
Right. And I think that the fact that that somebody like Hitler existed and rose to power and created so much conflict, I mean, a world war,
Yeah.
and which we all know about, hopefully the Holocaust, and all the Jewish people that perished during this conflict, that got murdered by this one person. And of course, he didn't do it alone, but at the end, it was his responsibility. He's responsible for what happened.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. And that is why it's like today, like even when I teach about World War II, like my students are fascinated. And it is.
Because it's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. Like, are you telling me that this is true? Like, this happened? Like, this guy, he was crazy.
Yeah.
To lack of a better word. I mean, there are many words that we could
Yeah.
use to describe him, right? But, and when you see this depicted in films, it is true. Like, you're thinking about, well, is this true? It's just because I can't understand how this actually happened in real life.
It's
right?
completely different when you're reading something in a book
Mm-hmm.
versus seeing just the visceral reaction you have to watching it
Mhm.
on screen and
Yeah.
hearing it, like, the medium of film. And I think that's why, like, it's so important.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's so because it utilizes so many different, like, senses that we have as human beings to convey a message that sometimes, like, you won't get that effect by reading words on paper.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And let me tell you, I don't know, like, one of my favorite scenes in
Inglorious Bastards.
in film war films is the beginning of Saving Private Ryan,
Yeah.
Right,
That
D-Day.
D-Day.
right?
It almost overshadows the rest of the film, which is a great and
Right,
amazing film.
like that.
Normandy or the cemetery?
No,
that
Normandy.
the Normandy.
Because
right?
I think I mean I don't mean to inject, but
Right.
the part where they start off with the cemetery and they start the movie off like, look at the loss of life.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Look at the
yeah,
loss
it's
of life,
always
and then go
impactful.
right into
right.
Yeah.
storming the beaches.
Right.
That's always
yeah. But that's I love that, and when I tell my students, if you want to see like how actually gruesome and horrifying, right, that day was, go watch the first, like, what is it, like 5-10 minutes of the movie,
Yeah.
and you're gonna get a pretty truthful depiction of that day, right? Because it's I mean, Steven Spielberg, he nailed it.
Yeah.
He did such a great job.
I mean, I think Spielberg's the master of the genre, just with the two punch of Saving Private Ryan and Schindler's List.
Yeah.
I think two of the
Oh
greatest.
yeah, no, Schindler's List is a phenomenal film, right?
That's one thing that, like, I still think about that. Probably, like, I don't know why. Like, maybe it's because, like, when I watch Oppenheimer, like, that's something that reoccurs in my mind is, that scene on like storming the beaches.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's an
Yeah.
image that I have engraved
Mhm.
in my head for the rest of my life.
The thing,
Right.
Hopefully.
the thing is that I think about it in a way, like, okay, like, let's say, like, you got drafted, you go through training, you're traveling, you're taken away from your family, you're taken overseas, and you're with a bunch of guys who are pissing their pants and, like,
Mhm.
equally as scared, and no one knows what's going on, the confusion, and the doors drop, and in a split second you are gone.
Yeah,
Mm.
you're not even off the
You're
boat.
eviscerated.
That's, and I don't think I had ever seen anything like that. And going back to your initial conversation about being exposed to this at such a young age, I was like 12, 13 at that time, 1998,
watched
when
Saving
Saving Private
Private
Ryan.
Ryan?
Yes, absolutely.
Man, you guys watch these films early.
Yeah, but for me, it was like
Yeah,
I was
his father, my father.
yeah.
Yeah.
But for me, though, I was allowed to. I mean, and I had seen other stuff, fun stuff, Terminator or whatever. But for me, I was allowed to watch these films. Like, this wasn't even a question. Schindler's List, I watched it over live public access TV.
Right.
Because of its importance. It had the nudity and the violence, and it was allowed for a very special reason. And I was exposed to those films. And for me, I was like, yeah, I'm going to see a rated R movie with like violence and cursing and everything. But it was not a good experience in the sense that emotionally there's a love-hate, because I guess at that time I do understand what World War II is. Like, when you studied about it, you've read about it. Right. So it's like, these are real people to me. So I'm still very young and impressionable. It's not
like you understood you were not going to go watch a superhero movie.
Yeah, and I was like, this is not cool what is happening.
Right.
This is crazy. I've never seen anything like it. Now that I'm older, going back watching films that are even older than that and watching films that have come, still, that depiction is so unique. Like you said, sometimes I forget what happens in the rest of the movie, but those images are burned. I don't think I'm going to forget them unless, I'd start losing my mind and my memory.
Right.
What was the other one? Oh, like, also when I was a kid, like, that's the thing. My dad was into these war movies. He had all these things on DVD. I remember, like, The Bridge on the River Kwai.
Yeah, Bridge on the River.
Like,
amazing film.
that confused me, because I'm like, wait a second.
I had written that down and I wasn't sure if we all remembered it.
I was like, what? Like, wait a second. Like, that, that threw me for a loop. And I think that's a difference, I think, with age and stuff like that. I knew this happened. I knew this was a real thing that happened. But again, I think that I just didn't know the loss of life. Like, I just didn't understand that to that level, to that degree.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't an emotional thing, because it's like, I think what it is, I think as I've gotten older, is like, I've learned to think about it in a way that, like, I'm putting myself in those shoes. Right. And that's why I think about that D-Day scene, because I think about it as like, these people didn't have a choice. Like, what is it? Like, what is it if, like, I was born back then? What is it if I was on that boat? That's my life. I am dead. I am gone.
And for what? And for what?
Because at that moment, you're not thinking about, ooh, I'm doing this for freedom and democracy. You're thinking about your own life, right? But then,
and it's like, even though that battle is important and us winning it is important, but did the guy that died in the boat contribute to that?
Right. That is why it's so important that directors do it right, especially when depicting war films. Because, like I said at the beginning, at the very least, could be a good action movie, but man, you're missing the opportunity to truly educate the public.
Yeah.
Right, on these important issues. When a movie is well done, you have people evaluating, reflecting, talking about it, raising awareness on the issues that are truly happen. Like when Hotel Rwanda came out.
Yes.
Right, like everybody was talking about, because it was PG-13. It was a topic that a lot of people were not aware of, that this went on, and it could be surprising, right? Like, the people didn't know about the situation that was happening, but it brought so much awareness, to that. So when a movie is well done, it could do so much good. Especially when it comes to films, with this conflict, right? So,
yeah, no, absolutely. It shapes also our perception of those events, and that gets even more complex when it's events that we've lived through, conflicts that are more recent. I believe you have an experience that you wanted to share regarding,
Just one quick thing before we move on. I do think, going back to Spielberg, I think that's what makes, those movies that he made so great, was because, a lot of times that these Hollywood directors, these Hollywood studios get, they make the decision to make these films. Some of that can be lost in fluff. Like, the Hollywood story ends up, the drama of it ends up taking over, and you lose what that movie should have been about, or the opportunity that you could have had. And I think that Spielberg does it beautifully, because he does both. Right. I think he has enough of, like, the Hollywood aspect of it. He has the story, the narrative that we're following with those soldiers, to save the Private Ryan. But there's also, like, he doesn't sugarcoat it. He doesn't romanticize it in a way. No, it's horrible. It's terrible. Right. There's the guy. There's people yelling for their, like, I just want to see my mom. I want my parents. Like, there's someone, like, you're watching people die right in front of you.
Right.
And I think that Spielberg did that. And I mean, that's that's like one of the greatest movies of all time.
You know what I hate?
What?
I hate when directors name a movie after a big war and then it's nothing about the conflict.
Okay, tell me more about Pearl Harbor.
That's what I had in mind. Like, really, like, you're gonna name the movie Pearl Harbor, but it's not about Pearl Harbor.
Oh,
It's
have you ever seen Titanic?
This romantic.
Sorry, go ahead.
But you know what? But at least Titanic, you know, it
There was a
takes
ship.
place
At least it was a
on
ship.
the ship.
There was
You
an
know,
iceberg.
and the relationship between what is it, Rose and
Jack.
Jack, right? It's a vernacular that director, the storyteller, is using to tell us that
Sure.
story about this phenomenal event that happened in history.
You don't learn a ton about the event.
I know, but at least you get to see it.
Okay,
Right?
yeah.
But Pearl Harbor is like, what, 5 minutes into the movie?
Yeah.
And then they move on to this romantic story. It's kind of a letdown.
Yeah.
Also,
You're just
disclaimer, I haven't seen this movie in years, so maybe talking.
No, you're correct, but also you're comparing Leonardo DiCaprio to Ben Affleck. So, anyways,
Oh, well, I'm not comparing the actors.
yeah, because
I'm
you're
just
like,
saying
oh,
the
Leo
quality
and Kate
of
Winslet can
film.
get away with it, but Ben Affleck not so much.
I guess.
But, anyways, which goes to show that a good film or even a great film sometimes can deviate from those narratives. But you know what? I think the difference, even though Pearl Harbor is similar in that nature, is telling a fictionalized story with the backdrop of the setting. But it's a tough thing to balance. As you can see, two
Yeah.
very alike movies can be
Mhm.
very different
Yeah.
with that. I was mentioning shaping the perspectives on events that we go through in our lives.
Hmm.
And I think you thought it was important to discuss, especially with the host of this show,
Mhm.
and our identities. I'm kind of volleying it too, so you can take
Colombia.
over. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, yeah, because we were like, when they were going through the questions or the topics that we're going to talk about, I'm like, well, you know, we in this room, we're all Colombians, right? Born in Colombia, Colombian descent, right? And
Thank you for making that distinction.
I think there is a distinction.
No, there is a distinction.
I think there is a distinction.
You seem very proud to be the one that was born in
No,
Colombia.
I think you guys should be very proud too. But I'm saying, like, there have been television shows and movies depicting
Oh, yeah.
the issues that either we are very much aware of or that live through.
Yeah. The amount of
Right.
Colombians that
Right.
Arnold and Steven Seagal kicked through windows
Correct.
when we were growing up.
Correct. For example, like, this is why I think that it's such a response. That's why I love the filmmakers that take the time to actually be honest and truthful about their art,
Mhm.
right? And not doing it for the fluff or,
Mhm.
you know, for the spectacle. But also they want to create awareness and reflecting on the issues that are happening around the world. But like for us Colombians, right, for many years, even the times that we arrived, since I arrived to this country, automatically we are connected or associated with drugs,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Right? Like, oh,
I mean,
you're
even-
Colombian.
even
You
to this
probably
day, like your cousins are Pablo
Right.
Escobar. Or
Hey,
something.
do you know Pablo Escobar?
Yeah.
And I'm like, not all of us.
He
are.
dated my grandma briefly, but other than that,
But not all of us are, you know, drug dealers,
Mhm.
you know, or done drugs. And I think that even through media and TV and all those things, right? Like now they're going back and telling stories about the 90s and what happened there and the situations that people lived through, you know, throughout this conflict. You know, it's important that they know that people in these countries also suffered,
yeah.
you know, because of this. It was not like Colombians were like, you know, glorifying Pablo Escobar, you know,
Like
or
he wasn't
anything.
like he wasn't Hitler.
He
and,
was
like,
not
everyone
a
else was Nazis.
he was not a hero. For some of them were,
Mhm.
and let's make that clear because I want to be truthful about what the event, right? Because he did do some good for some part of where he was from, right?
I mean, when these
At a high cost, though.
yeah, I mean, when
Let's
these
make that
figures,
clear.
when these figure rights, I mean,
Right.
there's a section of Germany, right, who
Right.
profits from the rise of the Third
Exactly,
Reich.
right.
There's a section
There was,
of the South.
right? There
that
was
profits.
something to gain, right? Whether it was the loyalty of the people
Death Star.
or whatever it was, but nonetheless, like it's nice when filmmakers and people that produce movies and TV that they know that people are gonna watch, that they're trying to depict truthfulness. because when I watched Narcos, you know, for the first time, I was like, okay, yeah, this is pretty cool. Right? My cat is trying to go in through that closet.
Yeah, you don't have to bring attention to it. I'll take care of it. Go ahead, continue.
Okay. But anyways, so it's just important, right?
That's
And
why we
us-
don't let him in the studio. by
I
the way.
know.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
You insisted.
I know, but he's so cute. But as Colombians, it's nice, right? When they tell the truth about what happened and that, you know, not all Colombians are drug dealers. That's nice.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Do you think that show glorifies Pablo a little bit though? Or do you think that's just the internet whipping?
No, people glorify themselves.
Yeah.
They hop on these trends and that becomes the popular thing.
Right.
I think.
You think it's easier to do that when you follow the story of the bad guy when he's kind of the protagonist?
1000%. Like you watch Breaking Bad, like everyone's like glorifying Heisenberg, like saying like he was a terrible person.
That's
he did
right.
terrible
He was
things.
a terrible person. Yeah.
And it's like, oh, like he's one of my favorite characters on television. He's a very complex character.
Right.
Like what he's not admirable. Like I don't want to be like him. But some people think that, you know, they do glorify that. They romanticize that and they think that, you know, Pablo Escobar was this gangster, like, oh, he's a badass. Like he's this I don't know, like it's different.
He's Scarface.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
When you
And I don't know if I'm right or wrong on this, but for me, it's easy to accept you think Heisenberg and Scarface are cool because they're fictional characters, but then it kind of hurts me deep inside when you look at Pablo Escobar on Netflix and feel the same way, because that's a real person who killed people in my family.
Right, because Pablo Escobar was not cool, right? He did a lot of harm, right, to the country where I'm from, to people that I know that are directly affected by the actions of this one person, right? So you know what? I'm trying to remember the Netflix series, and I know we saw it all.
No, we saw it until he dies.
Right. Oh, that's true.
Yeah, we did not
we did not continue with the rest.
Once he does,
so I cannot judge the rest of the series. But I do remember thinking that.
Oh, spoilers. Pablo Escobar dies in Narcos. Sorry, it's been a couple of years.
Right.
Yeah.
I forgot what I was going to say.
That you can remember how you feel about the depiction of him, or?
He's a real thing. It's a real thing that happened. He's not admirable. He's not a good guy.
Yeah, he's not a good guy. He's a terrible person. Stop making sure it's about him.
Well, so that kind of touches on something. Yes, stop making sure it's about him. You know, some might say the same thing about Che Guevara
or Fidel Castro. I agree. Stop making sure it's about people that have done horrible things.
Which kind of touches upon another topic, which is how these films shape our misconceptions about history. Can you think of a time or example of maybe some idea or concept that has kind of been misinterpreted over time?
Man, as an ignorant little kid watching those things, I thought all Germans were evil.
Right.
I thought all Germans were evil.
What is that movie with? What's the name of the movie? Kate Winslet, which is like naked most of the time.
The Reader?
The Reader. Yes.
Because she reads them or something?
No, I think he reads to her.
Okay, because she can't read.
Right. Like, and it's interesting because, yeah, like you said, like we always think, oh, all the Nazis were evil, right? Like they all were in it with Hitler. But for example, that movie, right, tells a different story.
Yeah.
Right? Tells a story about this woman that she had really no, I don't want to say she had no idea, because I think she saw what was happening to the Jews.
It's almost impossible to
ignore. Like you cannot ignore
what was she
it.
gonna do?
I mean, I don't know. At the very least, not do it.
You have a choice, but I don't know. Like, and that's maybe letting people off the hook too easy. That definitely is letting people off the hook too easy. But I think, like, a lot of people, like, and I think women particularly in that time period don't feel like they have much of a choice. Don't feel like they have much of a say.
Yeah.
According to like what the leader of the household at that time like is doing.
And like I said, it's so much complexity, right? Because now we can go back and be like, what you did was wrong, and we could clearly see it now. But like you said, for that people living at the time, living within the conflict, maybe it was not that black and white at that moment, right? But at the same time, you also have stories about people that choose to do the right thing,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And they decided that, you know what, I'm going to stand in the face of evil and I'm going to say, no, I'm not going to kill any Jews, right?
Yeah.
Or no, I am not going to support slavery, right? And matter of fact, I'm going to help them run away, right? Or no, I am going to, I'm going to say no to this. And at the cost and sacrifice and sometimes of their own life, they chose to do what's right. So when these people exist, right, how can you justify this other group?
Yeah.
And again, I'm being super black and white again, because the complexity of what that person, who that person is, and, how that person got there, we may not understand.
No, but this,
Right.
yeah, but at the end of the day, like, there is always a choice.
Right.
I think there's always, there's ignorance and there's education, and sometimes like you do know what you're doing is wrong, but you feel like, what's the alternative? I'm gonna die. Some people can make that choice, some people can't.
Right. Absolutely.
Some people are just like, I
Mm-hmm.
know that what I'm gonna do might end up killing me, but this is the right thing because I don't want to I can't live as someone like that, you know?
Right. And then you have the story of this other guy, Hacksaw Ridge.
Yeah.
What is
I
that?
was actually just going to bring that up.
What's his name?
It's like you're married or
Desmond.
something.
Yeah,
Doss.
that's true. Desmond Doss.
Yes. Desmond Doss. Incredible story, right? Like, this guy decides that with no weapon, he's going to go and save all these people and sacrifice his life in the midst of such a horrific
Including
scene.
enemy combatants.
Right. So it's like, and I think this is why people are fascinated with war films, because again, it brings the best and the worst out of us
Yeah.
in these horrific times, and
I think it's humanity unclothed.
Right.
I think this is how ugly we are, and this is how beautiful
right.
we are when we rise and stoop down, when we rise to the occasion, and
Right.
when we're overtaken and just hit rock bottom.
Right. And it's nice when the good guys win.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
No, yeah, and I think one of the things for me growing up was that it was stirring to watch the good guys, or I mean, in many cases, the movies that I watched, the Americans or the Allies,
Yeah.
because it felt like to watch a group of people band together and unite under a banner and choose to make sacrifices for the greater good, or
Mm-hmm.
for the betterment of other people or themselves or their nations and country. Like, I guess that stirs up, like, was it nationalism, I guess? Like pride. I think,
Nationalism.
pride. It's like, you're proud that you come.
I think it should stir patriotism. I think sometimes it stirs nationalism, and I think that's the difference between
patriotism is
jingoistic representations and
yeah.
truer.
they're very close together.
Yeah.
But no, but I think like that was, my outlook. It was because it was like inspiring, those are the things that I loved about those movies was like, and I mean, even recently, I think like stuff like Dunkirk, like when, when a group of people come out and help. And I think you have that, throughout countless stories that we've seen is like, it's looking really bad. And for a lot of people, they lost their lives.
Yeah.
Also, how happy I am that Christopher Nolan is doing real life stories lately.
Yeah.
I think that is so cool.
Yeah, Tenet was fantastic.
Tenet was, yeah. But like, for example, Oppenheimer. Like, we all know who Oppenheimer was, but I never.
But do we though?
I didn't.
I do.
I heard
not.
his name. I heard his name. I heard the Manhattan Project. I knew that he helped build the bomb. I didn't know anything else.
Now, a little ignorant growing up. I think bad guy, right? No. At least growing up, I felt like when you learn in school, guy who built the bomb, immediately not good person, right?
I guess.
And I think it's like, and I know that he then, the famous quote from
The destruction of
Bhagavad-
the world.
Yeah,
Worlds?
what's the direct quote? Now I have
Now
become
that I'm
death.
right.
I'm
I
becoming-
think
yeah.
that's the
Destroyer.
guy that read from the Bhagavad Gita.
Bhagavad Gita.
Bhagavad Gita. Book of the Bible. He reads from the Bhagavad Gita, that text after millions of people die at the hands of a bomb he created, and I create this image of like this supervillain, right? Not that he's bad. I know he wins a war. I know the rationale for the bomb, but it's like that's the guy that led to death. And even depictions like that are so complex, especially when you hear a story of this, of like the aftermath of that and that shift in perspective. And even the perspective going into these decisions, like you said, the rationale that we talked earlier.
But even Oppenheimer, and I like Christopher Nolan's depiction of this time because, like, for example, Oppenheimer, the first act of the movie, he wants to build this bomb, right? And he wants to go for it. And I don't know, but it seems to me that at that time, he was so excited about the breakthroughs in science and physics, that pursuit of knowledge, right? That pursuit of like actually coming to fruition, that the theories of physics, right? And go beyond.
That's what he was.
Right. But it's interesting because then the other act of the movie is him like, oh man, no, I am going to go against the very thing that I just created. Right. And again, it's that complexity, right, of humanity, right? Like he was blinded by his scientific endeavors and even ambitions. And is he a bad person? I don't know. I never knew the guy, but history could judge him as, because I mean, he did create a weapon that with the capabilities of destroying millions of people. When you are creating something like that, I mean, what do you think they're gonna use it for?
Yeah, and
you know,
and that's the thing. I think, like you just said that, but I was also thinking, like, especially reading the book, he was a theory. Like he based his work in theory. His work was all in theory and proving, and like he was never like a hands-on type of person. And in theory, this sounds excellent. To achieve this would be a feat.
Phenomenal.
And even in the book, and I mean in the movie he mentions it briefly, but in the book, like there was a time where he didn't want people to know that he was Jewish. I mean, even though it's in his last name, but he didn't really associate himself with that. And then, the war's happening, and he makes a comment where he's like, those are my people in the camps.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I thought about it and I'm like, was that genuine, or was that just like a way for him to like get himself onto the project, where he's like, now he like realized like these are my people, when he had been like, rejecting them for such a long time. But I think they
both could be true.
Yeah.
I think that both could be coexist. I think that he could all his life not wanted to be associated, and at the same time when this is happening, be like, oh, wait a minute, this is terrible. These are my
like
people.
Moses.
Right.
But I think you were saying, like, for me,
Oppenheimer, the new Moses,
that
Gabriel, 2024.
That made me think a lot, man, because it's like, if he doesn't, they do.
Yeah.
And I'm not here.
That's
probably
right.
not.
Yeah.
Right.
The world is a different place.
Right.
And it's like, you think about the destruction and the loss of life that came from, his choices and his invention, pretty much. And it's hard to say, yeah, like, good job, or like to praise him for that. But it is an ugly truth that you have to kind of accept, where it's like, did I benefit from this?
Yeah.
Probably.
And
so many other people.
Yeah, and that's something he's gonna have to live with.
Yeah, it wins a war we had to win.
Mm-hmm.
Could we have won it another way? We'll never know. But it begins an arms race that ends possibly with the destruction of mankind.
Wait, so that was something that, I guess, I don't know if my dates are hazy, but like, the Russians had already defeated Hitler at that time, right? It was just because the Japanese
the Japanese wouldn't surrender.
Yes. By that time, Hitler had already.
That was another thing that I was like, man.
But the Japanese,
I was
they
like,
were still,
man. I was just like, I feel like I had forgotten that detail.
Mm-hmm. That's why you have to drop it on Japan.
Mm-hmm.
No, exactly. But I don't know why. Like, it just didn't, occur to me. I know that, like, obviously we had the atomic bomb, and that was a show of force. But I didn't know, like, we had already passed that point where, like, Hitler was already defeated. Like, those troops. It was Japan that, like, they didn't like capitulate. They didn't want to. And that was another thing. I mean, from even from Godzilla that I got
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Godzilla -1.
-1, where it's like
A war film in another sense.
no, for sure. Like
Yeah.
Godzilla is the war machine.
That was a great film,
It's the
and I didn't want to watch it, and I went. I was forced,
I had to watch
Aren't
it
you
twice.
glad?
because of
and
it.
it was great.
it's the that sentiment where it's like the government is choosing for you.
Yes.
The government is like, we're gonna go out on our shields. Like everyone, like you can kill all of us. We don't care until like, they had to do. They did that.
And
Yeah.
that's the thing, that we have to be very aware that the people are the ones that suffer, especially those with low resources,
Yeah.
right? They're the ones that are always going to suffer the most in these conflicts, because they don't get much options.
Yeah.
They don't have many opportunities, right?
There's that moment in Godzilla, going back to it,
Mhm.
where the fishermen and the pilots are like, but why does it always have to be us?
Mhm.
Why is it us who have to put our lives on the line?
Suffering
Yeah.
for their choices. And
Yeah.
I mean, I said it when we talked about whatever episode that was, when we talked about it. But this sentiment of like, you'd rather die, it's on like an honorable death, or the kamikaze pilots. And this idea of dying is better than surrendering or giving in, or choosing to live,
Yeah.
that I think
Yeah.
growing up watching movies and reading, I think is what is something that I understood about Japanese culture, that to me, I understand, like to kill myself for someone, like for something that's like not even like in my control, like
You see it in Letters to Iwo Jima too, which is another
Exactly,
great film
yeah.
by
That's a
Eastwood.
great film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that's just the concept to me, that it's like, it's so foreign. It is so like, why would you decide to do that? And that was something that I was like, oh, I guess, Japan as a culture, Japan as a country, and their culture, like that is what everyone believes. And the thing that I got from Godzilla -1 is that sentiment is like, no, we want to live.
Yeah.
Like these people are making decisions for us, and
No culture is a monolith. We don't all
Right.
believe anything. There's not one thing that we all agree on.
exactly, and that was such a real aspect that a lot of these actual like nonfiction war movies don't get that level of emotion. Don't
Yeah.
get that. They just have things blowing up.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
And go ahead. No, because I'm ready to.
No, you go.
Well, that's one thing I wanted to touch upon was, there are those films, right, that glorify it, that reduce it to that, right? For every Behind Enemy Lines, we have Behind Enemy Lines 3 Columbia, starring WWE superstar Ken Kennedy. Was that his name? I don't even remember. For every, Rambo First Blood, right, that deals with, the returning home veteran. We have Rambo Last Blood, which is basically like
This is the last.
yeah,
Rambo.
the murdering Mexicans crossing the border,
Mm.
movie. So that you can definitely do it wrong, and they do miss the mark. But when you do war films great, I think one of their greatest contributions is they contribute to peace, prevention, and reconciliation. Because a great war film, its major theme is almost always war. Like, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. There are no winners, like you said. And you get that out of almost every war film. And I think it shapes the culture, especially in a culture like ours that, historically is a very action-oriented, very violent culture, right?
Sure, yeah. I mean, American history is a violent history.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I know that sometimes it's hard to face the fact that our country is not perfect.
Not
and
even close.
yeah, right. And the things that we have done as a nation has been horrific.
Yeah.
Right? Like so many things. And even in the 20th century, where you would think, oh,
We're enlightened.
we're
Yeah.
enlightenment. World War II hit. The first reaction was like, let's put all the Japanese away.
Yeah.
In internment camps because they're the enemy. Right? Like, it's like we don't learn the lessons sometimes because we act on fear,
Mhm.
right? Fear of preservation or survival. And we don't take into account the fact that, wait, those are Americans too,
Yeah.
right? But for sure, like what was I saying? I'm tired, guys.
I think that the talk of peace, prevention, reconciliation.
Yeah, what?
Yeah, that's it. You just agree? Okay.
No, and that was something that it's like that I learned after the fact because like going back to Oppenheimer, like
I think you like this film.
I think so too. It's just because like it really changed my perspective and I learned things about it, especially like going through the book as well. Because this person is the father of the atom bomb. He is the face of so much loss, of destruction, and that he had to live with that as a person, you know, and he was remorseful, and you could see that. But I think one of the things that was interesting is he used his position where, you know, kind of like off the trail of bodies that he left, he used his position to try and, you know, what's the word? Control and regulate, you know, his inventions. He tried to do better with what he, like the can of like worms that he opened, which like
Pandora's box.
He opened it. He changed everything. But I think from then on, and like he tried to like change things for that. He tried to make up, which I mean, I don't think you ever can, but like that's the thing. We can sit with us after if we do something wrong, we can sit with it and just let it consume us. Or you can like make the choice and like, okay, I did something wrong. I made a bad choice. I'm gonna try and do better. Yeah. I'm gonna try and not necessarily undo, but do what I can. Right. And going back to another, you know, film that has war in it is Kingdom of Heaven. Yeah. And I remember when I was a kid, there's
Which one is Kingdom of Heaven?
Orlando Bloom, The Crusades.
Oh yeah.
And there's that scene when I was a kid. There was a scene where Edward Norton, the king, and the
Edward Norton is the king.
Yeah, in The Mask.
Jinx, you're not allowed to talk for the rest of the podcast.
So he's the king, and he has this. They have, you know, the giant army, and you know, obviously, Saladin and his army. Like, it's just this giant battle that's gonna go on, and I'm like getting like hyped up. I'm like, okay, because I'm like, there's gonna be a giant like set piece. There's gonna be a war, and you know, the king like decides like I have to stand up for my people. I have to do what is right. Someone on my side like wronged you. I understand that, but he tried to talk it out. He tried to sue for peace, and they did. And, like, there wasn't any bloodshed the rest of that day. That person fails. The peace is broken. They end up going to war. But by the end of that movie, like, there was a bloody conflict, obviously, but
there's another way.
Orlando Bloom finds a way where he defends. He holds his ground, but he says, like, I don't want this to keep going. I don't want any more blood loss, any more bloodshed. Or Saladin says that. And it's like two people that want peace but aren't afraid to fight. But the thing I liked about that movie is like they were able to kind of come out of it, not the best results, I guess, but they were able to come out of it like on peaceful terms. They were like, okay, this is what happens. We're gonna.
If I remember correctly, they allowed the Christians to enter the city of Jerusalem. Leave the city of Jerusalem.
They weren't gonna kill all of them,
right? But I think and the peace treaty ended up with the Muslims allowing the Christians to visit the important sites of the city of Jerusalem, if I remember correctly. I may be completely wrong.
From the film or from history?
Not from history.
Okay, we're just gonna assume that the film aligns to the reality.
The director's cut does.
Yeah. The director's cut does. The theatrical.
I don't remember that movie much. Edward Norton was in the movie.
you don't see his face.
Yeah. Oh, that's why.
Oh, he wears a mask.
He's a leper.
He wears a mask.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I remember now.
I remember the leper king. Yes.
A leprechaun?
No, king.
He's a leopard king.
Okay, you know what I mean.
Okay.
The king with leprosy.
Yeah, we need some bits for the TikTok.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah. Have you guys seen the movie Glory?
Yes, because
of
you.
With Broderick?
Yes. Who else is in it?
Do you guys think that war movies have changed?
Yes, absolutely.
In what sense?
I don't know.
I mean, yes,
I don't know.
Sense.
Like, for example, like I watched Glory, great film. If you haven't seen it, go watch it, right? But it's a good film. And by the way, was gonna say George Washington is in it. He's not in it. He's
George
dead.
Washington.
It's Denzel Washington is
Oh
in
yeah,
it.
they're related.
Morgan Freeman. Who else?
There's like a really young actor in that movie.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Anyways, continue.
Anyways, it's a good film. But I feel like the depiction, and by the way, like the end of the movie does end with like the 54 Squadron going into war and perishing, because that is, you know, what happened. And which is a whole African American battalion, right? Made out of former slaves, runaway slaves, and some free men at the time. But I feel like the way how they depict, there is still this like need, right, to be Hollywood. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know.
I think that movie's PG-13, right?
Yeah, I saw.
So I think you're.
in school.
Yeah, because I show it in my class.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think there's limitations there to
Right.
kind of,
You
like
ever
you
saw that
said,
as a substitute teacher.
sanitize.
Also, I
sugar-coat.
do appreciate when
I feel like she might have shown
film.
me that.
Right. I want to say that I love when filmmakers do PG-13 versions of the war film. I know some
Yeah.
of them don't like it, right? Because they're like, oh, the integrity of the arts and blah, 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 blah.
I like that you're
know.
dismissing the integrity of
Okay,
the arts.
fine.
Oh my gosh! Oh, the artistic vision. Blah, blah, blah.
I get it. I get it. You know, it's wonderful. But sometimes, like, there are important films that I wish they could make a version for the classroom. You know, like, for example, I love Steven Spielberg. He's the man.
Yeah.
Because one of the goals of Steven Spielberg is not just to create great art, but it's to educate.
Yeah.
So many of his like rated R films, he has a classroom version of them.
Yeah.
So that's cool. Like Schindler's List.
Yeah. Well,
Right?
this is my hot take because I know the industry railed against, for example, Vudu was one streaming service that that created these edited cuts, and then the studios railed against them and they took them off. But
How dare they?
but I think it is hypocritical because versions like this exist for TV.
I know.
Like they play on TBS and TNT.
And I'm
so
not-
for money it's
right,
okay, but
right.
not for education.
And I'm not saying to like remove the violence, because I'm not
Give
about
us both
that.
versions. Give us
Right?
both versions.
Like I think so. Like war movies should be violent because it's a violent event, and again, we should not sugarcoat this. But there's some things that I cannot show, right?
Mhm.
Like and curse words, for example, like so. If you listen to this, all the directors of Hollywood,
Yeah.
be kind to your teachers.
Yeah, your teachers are paying extra money to another service to remove that stuff anyway.
That's
so.
correct.
So please,
Which is fantastic.
We want to
It's
give you
great.
money. We want to
But
give you money.
you know, like if there is a version to be have for them to our younger crowd experience and be safe, because I think there's important topics that we could talk about in the classroom.
And because, listen, as teachers, we're constantly fighting for time in the classroom and to keep
Right.
on pace. But this generation especially, I think, is willing to dedicate a class or two to watch or put in an extra time, at some other slot after school, during lunch or whatever, to share these films with them, because that's the impact they have. It's important to learn through books and discussion, but at the end of the day, you're going to remember those images like that D-Day drop.
Absolutely. And most of my students, they don't remember what we talk about in class, but they remember the videos I showed.
Yes.
So it's nice. It's
And
nice.
I'm one such student. Like,
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I read those textbooks, but to me, like, I had an interest in social studies. Like, that was probably like my favorite like class because of the movies that I'd seen, because there were so many historical movies that I would pay attention in that class, because it was like this. I have I have something to tether it back to. I have a reference point where it's like, oh, I remember I saw about that, and that made me in my mind, because I watched all these movies as a kid. I was always fascinated with history, and some even to what I consider like the boring parts. Because when I was a kid, like, I don't care about serfdom or like what rural Japan was like.
Oh,
back
she'll
then.
tell you all about it, why it's amazing and interesting.
You know,
but
I
we
wasn't.
don't have time today.
I wasn't thinking about that, about that as a kid.
Mhm.
But it's like, growing up, now I'm going back to these things that, oh, I heard about that in class. And I'm looking back and I'm like, okay, I remember that from a TV show or movie or a book or something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, look it up, and that sends me in the direction of, okay, educate yourself if you don't know much about that.
Right.
Plus, these films aren't the answer, but they definitely start a conversation where,
It's exposure.
yeah, I'm willing to now read 30 hours about one topic specifically.
And that's the thing. At least a good film, an honest film about whatever topic is always going to raise curiosity,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
it's always going to raise awareness, and it's going to leave you wanting more and wanting to learn more.
Yeah. We could talk about this forever.
Yes.
But to put a cap on this, what are some of those war genre films, and I know that's very open-ended, but that you would recommend for people to check out if they haven't seen it? What are some of the most impactful ones to you? I know we've mentioned a plethora of them here. You can repeat some of those or add to that list.
I'm Googling it.
Okay. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I mean, I'll start off with mine. I know this one's very strong. I saw it way too young, right? The opener really captivated me. Again, much more than the rest of the film. In many ways, but Full Metal Jacket. That movie is crazy. That movie is incredible. And that movie like made me question like a lot of things. So there's Full Metal Jacket that we didn't bring up. I did mention Letters from Iwo Jima and the companion piece Flags of Our Father. Amazing. The HBO series The Pacific and Band of Brothers. We'll start with Band of Brothers and then The Pacific. But those are some top tier. Both films are by Eastwood, and I believe who produced the Band of Brothers? Is that Spielberg? I think
I
think
don't
it's
know.
produced
I think it
by
was
Spielberg.
Honestly, I
yeah.
don't know.
So I think those are top tier for me. I love Apocalypse Now too. People think I'm weird.
Why?
No, why? That's a great film.
Well, it's very dark. It's very pessimistic.
Yeah.
You know, it's based
Well,
on
The Vietnam War.
Yeah.
It's Vietnam.
Right.
it's based on Conrad's Heart of Darkness, which is a problematic book, but from a historical perspective, it was also an important one that I read, you know, growing up. But Apocalypse Now, I think that's an amazing film.
Even just as a film.
Yeah.
Like as a like a piece of art. Like it is an incredible film.
Right, and there's different kind of war films, right? There are the war films that are about the war, about the battle, right? And there are war films that are about the surviving the war,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
right? So there's those two, like films that I've talked about some of them already. Like Schindler's List is one of my top
Films of all time.
right. Like he did such a great job.
Would you say it's your favorite film?
I would say it's one of my favorite historical films.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Barbie and then
Yeah, it's Barbie, then Schindler's List. No, I'm kidding.
Across the Spider-Verse. Okay.
Right. I think Fury. You guys remember Fury?
Oh yeah,
That
that's
was-
underrated.
Yeah, that was a great war film too.
I'll never forget Fury, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but I'll never forget Fury because the tanks shoot lasers,
Yeah.
and I was super confused. What is going
Right.
on in this movie? And then I learned about tracers.
Yeah.
The tanks, they would put paint that would trace, so when you shoot, it would shoot green and red. Like the Allies would use green, and the Axis would use red. And I was like, Star Wars makes sense now. G.I. Joe makes sense now. You know.
Right. And there there are a lot of historical film and war films that are worth your time. Yeah, Google it.
Yeah.
And go through the list. And some of them are good. I mean, we talked about Saving Private Ryan, which is a great film.
Yeah.
We talked about Glory. We talked about Oppenheimer. Which Oppenheimer is not about the war, right? But it's the preparation. It's about that event,
Mhm.
right? That eventually is gonna end the war. We talked about what else? Let me see. Hacksaw Ridge.
No, we don't have to share all of them, but
also a
but yeah,
great
Hacksaw
film.
Ridge is great.
Yeah, I don't know. There's so many.
There is so many.
There's
That's just one place to start.
right. There's so many.
Zero Dark 30 I see on that list.
Right. Oh
I
yeah,
love
like
that
like modern conflicts.
Yeah.
You know, like 21st century conflicts. Okay, Zero Dark 30s. What's the one? The Heart Locker too.
The Hurt
Locker.
Locker, yes.
yeah, that's Jeremy Iron. Also,
Yeah.
very good film.
No,
Renner.
Jeremy Renner. That would be an
Renner.
interesting film if Jeremy Irons was in it, but
I will watch that.
yeah, I would watch it
I'll
too.
watch that too.
Gabe,
Let's see. We got
1917.
Inglorious Bastards.
Yes.
Tropic Thunder.
Yes.
Okay, Tropic.
Okay, but Inglourious Basterds, I know it's fictional, right? But
And a comedy.
and a comedy, which they managed to pull it off.
Yeah, I don't know how.
Yeah, because if you think about it, I mean, it's the setting is pretty serious.
Yeah.
But
No. Like I said Bridge on the River Kwai.
Yes.
Mhm.
Oh, this is a classic.
I would check out the films of David Lean, like just as a
Mhm.
whole. You could start with River Kwai, but like obviously they're not all war movies, but you know, Lawrence of Arabia, Dr. Zhivago. If you like Obi-Wan Kenobi, Alec Guinness, he's in all of them and he's amazing.
Those are great films.
Yeah, David Lean.
Also, they're very long.
Yes, they are very long.
Very
but
long.
That's okay. You can watch them at home. 2 parts. They have intermission. So
Yeah.
continue, Gabe.
Oh, you know what was good? The Darkest Hour.
Or don't.
That was
Darkest
good
Hour was
film.
good.
Darkest Hour, yes. I
Yes.
think I explained that to Gabe the other day. That I was like, that's the best movie I enjoyed that I don't like think I understood like part of it.
Yeah, you definitely have to watch it with subtitles.
Subtitles, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Go ahead.
What was the other one? I did like 1917.
I loved
That was
it.
great.
I think World War One gets lost in the shuffle of
Yes.
everything of World War Two.
Yeah, we only have Wonder Woman in 1917.
Exactly. And to me, like I don't know, like I just assumed World War One looked exactly like World War Two, but it was different.
Yeah,
Like,
it was way
It
different.
was
Yeah.
very different.
Oh, shout out like Dark Horse, They Shall Not Grow Old, the Peter Jackson documentary on World War One.
Yeah.
That movie's crazy.
Yeah.
Just from like a historical archival
Yes.
footage perspective.
Yes.
Uh,
Platoon.
Platoon is good. I haven't seen it in a long time.
I haven't seen it in years.
Yeah, but I remember it being important
Yes.
in my life.
Isn't it Charlie Sheen?
Yeah,
the
it's
main
Charlie,
guy?
yeah.
The
Eh.
pianist.
Oh yeah.
The Pianist, yes.
The pianist for
Yes.
sure.
I mean, almost like Holocaust narratives are like their own even subgenre.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
really are. You
Yeah.
guys should make a whole podcast about it.
I don't know if
As
I could
far-
endure that
As
emotionally.
far as
show.
what was it, I guess one of the newer ones. This one was. It's based on a true story, but I don't know. Like, I feel like it's more entertainment. Is Black Hawk Down
I do
Yeah.
think it's
with the
yeah,
ensemble
it's very-
cast
Who is
and
that?
all that stuff?
Who directs that movie?
I don't know. You know that? Okay, interesting story. I
Yeah.
have started the movie like 100 times. Then I seen pieces in the middle, but I never seen the whole thing. Never.
It's Ridley Scott. That's why.
Oh,
I never seen the whole entire
That makes
movie.
sense.
yeah.
Have you?
I have. I was very young. That movie is.
What do you mean you were very young? That movie's not that old.
Yeah, it's pretty.
We
old.
were already like in
It's
our
2001.
20s.
2001. I
Oh,
was 17.
in our teens. We're 17.
I was 17. So it was like
Okay.
we were in high school.
We're
I
in
watched
high
a lot of
school.
movies at the time. There were a lot of war movies at the time. I remember like Wind Talkers came out.
Everything
I
was
remember,
out.
yeah, there was a lot of war movies at the time. They kind of all bled together.
Do they still make war movies? Because Oppenheimer,
What?
I know it's a
We
it's a
just
movie.
saw-
All Quiet on the
We
Western
just
Front
saw
is
All Quiet on the
Yeah,
definitely
you're
something I
correct.
recommend
Yeah.
you should
Take
watch.
that back. I am sorry.
Yeah, everyone has Netflix, okay? Even if you're not stealing it from your uncle anymore, you have to pay for it, okay?
That's
All
true.
Quiet on the Western Front. Absolutely. One of the best ones in this generation
Yes.
I've seen recently.
And if you haven't heard me talk about it, Oppenheimer.
All right, those are our recommendations, and we're gonna cut it off.
And Napoleon.
Don't
No.
you have to right before I finish? You're gonna say it.
No, we're not gonna
Let me
talk
tell you,
about
I
this.
will tell Ridley Scott, Black Hawk Down. Ridley Scott directs in Napoleon. Those the
Set
war,
pieces?
the battles,
Mm-hmm.
they're pretty epic.
Yeah.
They're pretty epic.
Yeah.
The story and the characterization are horrific. And
I don't know about horrific.
nah, man, that depiction of Napoleon was
Oh, so you like
that was
it
not
less
the
and
play.
less as time has passed?
Yeah, what I
I
thought.
don't think I don't remember you saying that it was horrific.
No, I think it was bad. Yeah, no, I think I said it was bad
Yeah?
immediately. Yeah, yeah. Joaquin Phoenix plays Napoleon like he's I don't know, every Joaquin Phoenix character where he's like an inept
That was-
sterile.
So it's interesting depiction of Napoleon. Did you see it, Gabriel?
No.
So don't watch Napoleon. Watch Black
just-
Hawk
no,
Down.
but
Tell
you
us if
should-
it's good.
Yeah, you should wait until it comes out. It's no need. Well, it's already out of
Yeah,
out
I
of
don't- it's not in theaters.
Yeah. Also, you guys sit here for so long. Don't your back hurt?
Yeah, we usually wrap up the episode before we complain about how uncomfortable the chairs
Oh,
are.
maybe you guys should invest in new chairs.
Well, I invested in a chair,
guys,
but
you guys
they
should
don't want
talking
to.
about
donate
that.
to the podcast so we can get brand new chairs.
Thank you.
Let me tell you, as a witness,
Our guests are
of,
uncomfortable.
Like, it's really uncomfortable.
I guess I should have given you my chair, but usually I don't give it to the guests because it's full of cat hair. But I guess you don't care.
But I live here.
It's your cat. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that.
Yes.
So we hope you enjoy the conversation. Send us money for new chairs.
Yes.
Till next time. Gabe, you want to?
Keep on searching.